In a desolate area, a lone traveler stumbles a rock of gold. When another man offers aid to extract it, they both struggle to pull it out. They agree to seek assistance from a nearby town, but the lone traveler offers to stay and watch over it. As he desperately protects the enormous gold nugget, he encounters multiple challenges and exposes the selfish nature of humans and how desperate we can be at times. Hey guys, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we're looking into the 2022 Australian survival thriller film titled Gold. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get right into it. The movie begins showing a train passing through a dry, deserted area. Inside the train, we see a rough-looking man named Virgil, eating pieces of bread. In front of him sits a strange woman carrying a baby. The woman stares at Virgil as she tries to calm her crying baby, who appears to be hungry. Soon the train stops and Virgil decides to step down. However, before stepping down, he hands over his remaining bread to the woman to feed her baby. Afterwards, Virgil walks to a nearby shop where he finds the shopkeeper watching TV. He then tells the man that he is looking for someone who is expected to take him to a place called the Compound. However, the shopkeeper ignores Virgil and continues watching the TV. Later, Virgil asks about the bathroom, and the owner directs him in a foreign language. Following the shopkeeper's hand gesture, Virgil locates the bathroom, which happens to be dirty and filled with flies. Having no choice, Virgil opts to use it like that. At least he can now ease himself after a long journey. While in the bathroom, a man approaches and asks Virgil if he is the one going to the compound, and he answers yes. Later, while Virgil washes his face, the same man warns him not to waste the water, since they are in a desert land and water is hard to come by. In the following scene, Virgil is shown traveling along with a truck driver named Keith. Keith is conversant with the road that leads to the compound and happens to charge people to go there. On the way, Keith explains the cost of the travel to Virgil as he drafts an invoice for him. Virgil notices an extra charge in the fee and confronts Keith about it. Keith threatens to turn back and Virgil immediately agrees to pay him the full amount he'd requested for. Feeling the extreme heat, Virgil turns on the AC in the truck, but Keith immediately warns him against it, stating that it will put pressure on the engine and will damage it. After traveling for a while, the truck's tire gets busted, and they pull over to change. While they're at it, they spot a wild dog eating up another wounded dog. Seeing this, Keith feels compassion for the wounded dog and immediately chases the healthy dog away, giving the wounded one a painless death. After fixing the tire, they hit the road again, and after a long day ride through the mountains, they stop to refill gas at night. Afterward, they decide to rest, and at this time, they begin to discuss the economic downfall that has been making people move southward for survival. Following this conversation, Keith asks Virgil why he wants to go to the compound, and Virgil replies that he's searching for a better lifetime opportunity. With this, he reveals an advert paper from a company that promises working opportunities that will change his life for good. Keith, who regularly visits the compound, laughs at Virgil and reveals to him that the compound is not a better place for opportunities, adding that the only thing he can find there is hard labor and shitty jobs. However, Virgil replies that he's not afraid of hard labor and confidently tells Keith that he can handle it. The next morning, Virgil takes a turn to drive the truck while Keith rests in the passenger seat. After driving for a while, Virgil turns on the AC to its full potential, as he begins to feel hot from the scorching sun. Shortly after this, the engine begins to overheat, and it then runs down. Keith wakes up, and as soon as he realizes what Virgil had done, he angrily asks him to pull over. After stopping, Keith gets down and begins to vent. However, Virgil apologizes for his action and afterward goes to ease himself, leaving Keith to fix the truck. On his way back to the truck, he notices some clusters of rocks. Feeling curious, Virgil begins to inspect the area, removing dirt from the rocks. The rock resembles gold, but Virgil is not so sure. Virgil calls out for Keith and asks him to take a look at the rocks. Keith arrives there and takes out his lighter, stating that if the rock burns and turns black, it ain't gold. Keith goes ahead to light a part of the stone, and they immediately realize that it's gold, seeing that it didn't burn or change color. At first, they imagine it must be a small chunk. However, as they begin to dig, they begin to realize how huge it is. After digging for a while, they try to pull it out with their hands, but despite their efforts, the rock stands firm in the ground and they realize they would need more force to move it. With this, they decide to deploy more force by tying a rope to the truck to pull it out. However, the rock still doesn't budge, and the rope keeps detaching each time they try. Virgil soon gets exhausted, but Keith seems more desperate as he continues to dig deeper into the ground. After a while, Virgil joins him again and they dig till sundown. At this point, Keith heads out to search for firewood for the night, explaining to Virgil that wild dogs are very active in the area and can only be chased away with fire. Upon hearing this, Virgil joins him, and together they bring back a pile of firewood. They light the fire and sit around discussing the fortune they've just found. Keith gets really excited thinking about how their lives will change, and he immediately begins to scream and jump in excitement, even pulling Virgil up to join him. After some time, Keith mentions that since they're unable to take out the gold, one of them will have to go get an excavator. Keith further reveals that he has some contacts who can lend them an excavator and suggests Virgil should be the one to get it. Now, the thing is, Virgil doesn't know his way around the desert, and he obviously has no idea how to adjust there for long. So contrary to Keith's proposal, Virgil suggests that Keith should go get the excavator since he knows the way, while he stays to protect the gold. Keith agrees to go and reveals that the journey is expected to take a minimum of 4 days to go and come back, explaining that he'll have to cool off the truck's engine at intervals. Later, Keith begins to tell Virgil what he needs to do to survive the desert, revealing that he needs to save water, watch how he eats, and also remember to gather firewood to keep the wild dogs away at night. The next morning, Keith gives Virgil tent clothes and some canned foods and also divides their water supply into 2 parts, taking the larger part for himself since he would need some to cool the truck. He also hands Virgil a pocket knife for his protection and a satellite phone, promising to call him from a payphone once he's able to. With this, Keith leaves after telling Virgil to keep his head up and look after himself, reminding him of how rich they'll be after he returns with the excavator. Later, Virgil uses the tent cloth to create a small shelter for himself under a nearby tree, and later checks the satellite phone to see if it's working. After that, he goes to scavenge firewood around the area. Upon returning to his shelter, he finds a scorpion. It's roaming around the place, and he gently chases it away. Soon night falls and Virgil is shown sitting beside the fire, eating his canned food. Shortly after getting filled, Virgil begins to hear wild dogs barking from a distance as he gets ready to sleep. He begins to get scared and quickly grabs his pocket knife in readiness. The following morning, Virgil wakes up on the bare ground, pale and tired. Later, he decides to take a dump and hesitates to use water to clean himself, remembering how much he needs to save water. At the same time, the satellite phone rings, and before Virgil can drag himself there, it ends. Feeling frustrated, Virgil walks around the area and finds the remains of a crashed plane. He decides to use it as a shelter, but since the gold site is not visible from there, he abandons his idea. With this, he decides to take some parts from the plane and use them as a shelter. Shortly after, Virgil dozes off after working himself out, but when he wakes up, he finds a part of his face burnt due to the scorching sunlight. He then sits beside the gold, and soon begins to hear his thoughts after seeing a scorpion crawling on it. After a while, Virgil gets an idea. He decided to try breaking a piece of the gold. After repeatedly hammering it with a rock, he successfully breaks off a small but heavy chunk of gold. At the same time, Keith calls him on the satellite phone, and he hurriedly picks it up. Sadly, Keith tells Virgil that it will take him more time to return because his truck's engine keeps overheating. Virgil feels sad about the news, but manages to tell Keith about the small chunk of gold he just broke off. Regardless, Keith warns Virgil not to attempt to leave the place, reminding him of how much gold he'll be leaving behind if he does, promising to try his best to return soon. Later that night, Virgil finds himself fighting off wild dogs as they keep making attempts to devour him. However, he manages to use firewood to chase the dogs away. The next morning, Virgil pours some water into a bottle, and while drinking it, he spots a striped desert snake approaching him. Virgil, who used to be kind to animals, attempts to kill the snake for food, but it manages to escape. However, as soon as Virgil turns back, he realizes that he had accidentally knocked over the bottle and spilled most of the water. Virgil tries to scoop the water back, but realizes it's too late. At this point, Virgil realizes that he is now out of water and food. Later, he once again visits the plane crash site and tries to collect some more wreckage for his shelter. However, he spots someone approaching him. He quickly enters the wreckage and tries to hide himself, but the stranger, who turns out to be a woman, soon spots him and asks him to come out. The woman offers him some food and drinks, but Virgil refuses to accept anything from her. Regardless, the woman reveals to him that he can get water 5 kilometers away from where he is, but Virgil remains adamant. Curious, the woman asks Virgil about his motives and how he ended up in the desert, but Virgil remains quiet and ignores her questions. Later, the woman spots Virgil's tent and begins to walk towards it. However, Virgil warns her to stay away and later offers to let the woman take shelter in the plane and leave him alone. With this, the woman begins to sense that Virgil is hiding something from her. Regardless of his attitude towards her, the woman continues to intensify her questions, asking if he was running from something. However, Virgil only tells her that his friend is coming to pick him up, but the woman seems not to be satisfied with his answers. The woman asks him how he got to the desert in the first place, but he refuses to answer. Irritated with the questions, Virgil confronts the woman and once again warns her to leave. After giving her this stern warning, Virgil begins to breathe heavily, and the woman notices how dehydrated he is. With this, she warns him about the side effects, telling him how his brain will be affected and that he might soon begin to hallucinate if he doesn't get water to drink. Later, The woman tries to destroy his shelter as she continues to persistently insist on knowing what Virgil is hiding. However, Virgil gets angry and hits her on the head with a shovel, killing her on the spot. Realizing she's dead, he then takes her food, water, and all other useful items from her backpack before burying her. Shortly after, Virgil sees wild dogs digging up the dead body, and he chases them away. He then drags the woman's body somewhere far and burns it, crying as he watches the body melt in the fire. The next morning, Virgil wakes up to the sound of the satellite phone, and as soon as he picks it up, Keith on the other side informs him that he has succeeded in finding the excavator, but will need some more time to get there, as the load of the excavator is slowing him down. However, before hanging up, Keith encourages Virgil to stay strong, promising to be with him as soon as possible. Later, Virgil spots a truck passing by the area and he quickly hides himself, refusing to see the truck as an escape vehicle because of his greed for more gold. Late that evening, while gathering firewood for the night, Virgil notices a sandstorm approaching, and he quickly runs to get shelter. However, the storm manages to rip his shelter apart, prompting Virgil to run for his life. During this time, Virgil gets hit badly by a tree branch. After the storm, he wakes up from a heap of sand with a piece of wood stuck into his stomach. Instead of pulling out the branch, he crawls towards the gold site to check if it's still there, even if he is in pain. After finding the gold, he immediately faints on it. After some time, Virgil pulls out the branch from his stomach and bleeds profusely in the process. Virgil proceeds to make a fire and heats a can in it, which he then uses to disinfect the wound. Following this, he rubs a mixture of sand and blood on his face and later collapses to the ground. When he opens his eyes, he sees a woman pointing a crossbow at him. Seeing this, Virgil starts hallucinating, seeing the previous woman he had killed. However, after realizing that he's still alive, the woman provides him with some water to drink and leaves. When Virgil opens his eyes, he doesn't find the woman anywhere around and concludes that he's hallucinating. At the same time, the satellite phone rings and he manages to dig it out of the sand. Virgil tells Keith about the woman, and Keith suggests he get rid of her. Soon after the call ends, the woman again appears in front of Virgil and offers him some help. However, a greedy Virgil, who appears to care more about the gold than staying alive, yells at her to go away, refusing help once again. Before leaving, the woman inquires if he has seen her sister, but Virgil ignores her. After a while, when Virgil opens his eyes, he finds himself encircled by burnt-out fires and wild dogs nearing him. He immediately grabs the satellite phone and contacts Keith. He asks where he is, and Keith replies that he's almost near, adding that he could see the smoke from his fire. Virgil already crying over the phone, begging him to come fast as the wild dogs keep attempting to kill him. In a shocking twist, it is revealed that Keith has since returned from his journey. It appears that he has been using his binoculars to watch Virgil from a distance, waiting for him to die so that he can take all the gold for himself. Soon, the dogs begin to attack Virgil, and they later overpower him as he loses the strength to fight back. He then gets eaten by the dogs while he still stares at the gold. Not long after, Keith arrives at the spot with an attached excavator. He stares at Virgil's body and then returns to his truck to begin the excavation. However, as soon as he turns back, an arrow pierces through his heart. The movie ends without anyone showing who shot him. In the end, both men lose custody of the gold due to their greed and selfish nature. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.